You.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're on Keter Shem Tov, the teachings of the Ba'al Shem Tov, Ayin Ches Aleph and Beis, 78, number 1 and number 2. And the title that I chose, We Make Ourselves, is totally inappropriate. We're going to be discussing something else completely. Let's start with a story from the Ba'al Shem Tov that's connected. It's a story that I very much like. It says the Ba'al Shem Tov came to the wedding of a grandchild, and he arrived in the town, and he's with the wedding procession, and he's holding the arm of the groom, and there are hundreds of people following them, and they get almost to the chuppah, and he stops the entire procession, and because he sees that there's a man in a wagon that's driving by, and he goes over to him, he says something to him, there's a short exchange, and he comes back to the wedding. And the students, there were dozens of students of Ba'al Shem Tov there, and they thought this must be one of the 36 hidden tzaddikim. If the Ba'al Shem Tov is going to stop a wedding, stop the wedding procession, and go to speak to this person, he must be a hidden tzaddik, a hidden righteous person. That the world stands on the merit of the 36 hidden tzaddikim, and so they made a note of it. And after the wedding procession, which was a beautiful wedding, and they remembered about this person, and they went to look for him. So they found him in an inn, and they said to us, "Holy Rabbi, please will you share with us what the Ba'al Shem Tov said?" And the man said, "I'm not a holy rabbi or even the son of a rabbi. And what the Ba'al Shem Tov told me was something private between myself and him." And they wouldn't be put off. And so we began to tell them the story. Let me just close my door 1 second. The story was like this: that he has a very good friend, and his very good friend was a peddler, and the peddler would travel. Those who came late will. We're telling this. Okay. Anyway, I'll share the rest of this. You can hear the rest of the story in the recording. So he says he has a very good friend, and the friend was a peddler, and the peddler would travel sometimes for weeks at a time, selling things, and he would come back with enough money to pay for his rent, to pay for his food, and so what would happen was he was a person that was very, very well liked, and all of his friends would gather. Would come to see him when he came back, and they would say l'chaim, and they would bless him, and also his creditors would come, and he would pay him their thing, and it was a very, very nice time. Okay, anyway, so he came to the house, and the wife was cooking, and the children were all playing, and the actual balabayas, the peddler, the person wasn't there, and the wife said he just went out for a few minutes, he's going to be back, and so the friend was looking forward to seeing him, and he said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to take an opportunity and smoke some tobacco, smoke my pipe." And he opened up the cabinet where he knows his friend kept his tobacco. And what did he see there? Wow, he saw his wallet stuffed with money, a pouch stuffed with money. Okay, and he said, "Well, how irresponsible is that of my friend? You know what? I'm going to teach him a lesson." And he puts the wallet in his pocket, and he's waiting for him to come. He's going to open up the gate, what do you call it? The cabinet. And the money's not going to be there. He's going to freak out, and I'm going to pull out my wallet and say, "Don't be silly. Next time, hide it in a better place." But he waited and waited and waited, and the friend didn't come, and there was something he had to do in the house, and he left the house, and he figured he's still savoring the expression on his friend's face when he said, but he had to go home. He got stuck in one thing, another thing, a third thing. By the time he came back, he heard screaming and shouting. He said that the wife was on the floor in a faint. All the children were rushing around the house, opening up all the cabinets, trying to find the thing. The husband was screaming, was pulling his hair out. He said, "What happened to all of my money? What happened to all my money?" Okay, and so the friend is so embarrassed. He's not going to. The wife is on the floor. The husband is pulling his hair out. The kids are screaming and crying. There's a dozen people around. Everybody is totally lost in this madness. And he's so embarrassed. He's going to take out the wallet. He's going to think he's a nutcase. Okay, so he says, "You know what? I'm going to wait for the right time." And went home. He mumbled some words of consolation, and he went out. but it didn't go away. Because why? Because the creditors were there. They were bounding. They were banging on the doors. They were making him crazy. Okay, and the person had to sell all of his possessions, and he had to make deals, and he had to push it to his cow, and it was. And the guy can't find the right minute. He just wants to give him back the money. Okay, and so not only days went by, weeks went by, and months went by, and the situation only got worse and worse. And the peddler was depressed, and at this point, the man he's so broken. The person who took the money really doesn't know what to do, because he's assured that if he gives the money back, things are so bad. He's the creditors. He's lost everything, and the landlord is threatening to take him out of his house, and he said they'll accuse him of stealing it, and now he doesn't really want to do it. And so he says, you know what, what I'm going to do. All of a sudden, I had this idea that I'm going to go. Yeah, right. Maybe I'll take the money. I'll invest it. I'm a smart guy, and I'll make twice the money, and I'll give him not only the money that I took, but almost all of the profits that I make, and it'll make up for this terrible thing that I did to him. And so, but I can't do it here in this town. I have to go to a different town where nobody will know me, because if I start investing with all this capital here in this town, they'll all suspect me right away. And so he got to. This is the man telling it to the students of the Ba'al Shem Tov. So he hires a wagon, and he said, right, the Ba'al Shem Tov came out to me, and he whispered in my ear, "You must go back right now and return the wallet, and don't be afraid, okay, that they're going to think you stole it, because if it comes to that, I myself will come and to tell you that your intentions were good." Okay, right? And the man said, all of a sudden, all the clouds in his brain fell away, and he stayed overnight, and he was on his way back to his village now. Okay, and so we're going to just, okay, everybody has the story. We're going to discuss an insight into that story when we're studying what we're studying. Now, I just want to point out, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Reba Rivka succeeded. You have the text of the two different paragraphs that we're studying. 1 second, let me just see it. No, okay, Reba Rivka, were you able to put it in the chat? Let's see.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I can also see it. Okay, so
Moshe said something, but I don't know.
Okay, so we have.
Can everybody see it?
On the share screen, we have the two pieces of Torah that we're going to be studying. In the chat, for those who can't read Hebrew, I did it. I'm being honest. I did it in 10 minutes because I promised, even though I'm hesitating to share it, but I put it together in 10 minutes. It's a translation only of the words, not of the concepts, but I hope it will help in some way for the studying. For those who want to use that translation, it's in the chat. Okay, beseda. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat also. And our wonderful logistician Rivka will answer your questions. I don't know. There's something with a symbol of a phone. I'm not sure what that is. All right, we're going to continue. Everybody look inside. Okay, so we say Me'al Ba'al Shem Tov, from the Ba'al Shem Tov. Now, what the first line here is he's quoting, or he's referring to a Mishnah. First of all, we've been here for 1 second. Where am I going? Here we go. What is a Mishnah? Okay, I'm not. We're not going to take time, but I know that most of the people here know what a Mishnah is, but maybe some people don't. Vincent, welcome back. Okay, God gave the Torah to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai, but that Torah there's hundreds of things that are not clear. It says only eat kosher, but it doesn't explain what kosher is. It says put a mezuzah on your doorpost of your house, but it doesn't say where the mezuzah is. It says to where tzitzis, and it doesn't explain what tzitzis is. It says to put totafot beinei necha, to put something called totafot beinei necha, and which are tefillin, and it doesn't say anything about tefillin, how to make them, what they are. Tefillin, these are black leather boxes that are pressed into shape after months of work, and parchments are put inside. There's so many details there, and the Torah doesn't explain any of it. How is it explained? So just like in a family, just like in a family, in my family, when one of my children marries her spouse, okay, the first thing she has to do, she explains, there are all types of family Leiter. My last name is Leiter. Leiter rules. There are Leiter rules. You know, I have a particular place that I sit at the Shabbos table. We sing a particular song. I give the girls the bread first before I give the boys. We have Leiter family rules, right? You know what? She's not going to write it down, right? Because she hopes they're going to be as important to her spouse as they are to her, and she gives them orally because you have to live them. It's an oral tradition. Well, that's what the Mishnah and Talmud was. It was an oral tradition given over to the Jewish family, okay, of how to live Jewish lives. All the mitzvahs were there and were explained, right? And only afterwards, when Yehuda Nasi, when the Judah the prince was knew by prophetic knowledge that the Jewish people were going to go into exile, did he begin the process of writing down the oral tradition? And the first edition of that oral tradition was called the Mishnah, which means teachings. The second, or the repeating, because people tried to learn them by heart. And the second, the explanation of the Mishnah came 100 years later, called the Talmud, which means study. Okay, and then there are the main commentaries, Rashi and Tosfos on those texts. And then after that, hundreds, if not thousands, of other commentaries. Okay, so we're now quoting something from the Mishnah. It says I hope anybody have any questions on that? The people, Vincent, do you understand what I said? Vincent, okay. What about Hillel? Was that clear what I said?
I do, thank you.
Yes, was that clear? Was I clear about what the Mishnah is?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Okay, so the Mishnah, so what does it say? The Torah says you're not supposed to work on Shabbos. Okay, you're not supposed to work on Shabbos. What does that mean, work? Does it mean if I have a sack of oranges, 100 pounds of oranges, 50 kilos of oranges, right? Am I allowed to carry it from my basement to my roof of my house? Is that considered work? And the answer, everybody say, Dara, is it work?
Yes.
No, it's not. Hi, Shalamis. No. Even though I'm going to get a sweat, even though it's very difficult, even though I'm going to be very tired when I finish, nevertheless, it's not work. Carrying something heavy within a private domain is not one of the 39 different types of work that are defined by the Mishnah. Okay, was a part of the oral tradition. What are these 13 different types of work that are forbidden on Shabbos? They were the 39 different types of work that were involved in creating the tabernacle. The tabernacle was, as we said before, was a moving temple in the desert. Somebody's microphone is on. Okay, the tabernacle was a traveling temple that the Jewish people used in the desert. When after the sin of the golden calf, God said the Jewish people need to have direct contact with the divine, with the infinite, and that was brought to the Jewish people by the tabernacle. And they used to bring offerings, and there was a place where the Kohen Gadol, where Aaron the high priest would go in and actually commune with God, right, on Yom Kippur. Okay, an amazing thing. There were 10 miracles you could see all the time. That was the tabernacle. Okay, so the 39 different types of labor that were involved in creating the tabernacle, since the idea of keeping Shabbos was brought in the Torah immediately after the discussion of creating the tabernacle. So we understand that the rabbis revealed that what it means to work are the different types of work that were used to create the tabernacle. I'm just going to read them to you, okay? What are they? So the first thing is field work, because there were all types of produce that was used in the offerings in the temple. So there's sowing and plowing and reaping, gathering and binding, threshing, winnowing, selecting the grains over the chaff, grinding, sifting, kneading, and baking. So those were the field work. Then there was making curtains. That was shearing wool, cleaning the wool, combing the wool, dyeing the wool, spinning the wool, stretching the threads, making the loops, weaving the threads, separating the threads, tying the knots, untying the knots, sewing and tearing. We're almost finished, okay? Then there were also leather curtains, made of skins, okay, a special kind of animal that you have, right? So there was trapping the animals and slaughtering the animals, excuse me, skinning the animals, tanning the hides, smoothing them out Brillo to smooth out the hides, ruling lines to cut them into pieces. No, ruling lines is to mark them where they had to be cut and then cutting, and then finally there was the beams of the Mishkan was writing and erasing, because the way that they would know which beam would go, I hope I'm making sense to everybody. How would they know which beam? There were beams and curtains. Which beam would go next to which? Because they were letters. So when you put the two proper beams together, that would be like writing, like putting two letters together. When you take the two beams apart, that would be like erasing. Those are, one second. Oh, what? No, there's a few more. Building, putting things together, breaking down, taking something apart, and then the final touches is extinguishing a fire, kindling a fire, striking the final hammer blow, and carrying. Okay, so if I take a bag of oranges from the bottom of my house, the basement, to the roof of my house, up and down, even 50 times, that is not considered work. Only if I carry it outside of my private domain into a public domain, that's the prohibition of carrying. Okay, now, I hope that 10 minutes made sense. Now look inside. So here we go, Perish Shas. This is an explanation from the Talmud, right? And it's a Gemara, it's Gemara Shabbos, and it says, "Hashochet da'alma chayiv mishum tzovea." Oh, what is this talking about? So you have one of the things that we read in the 39 different types of work was slaughtering. Slaughtering is forbidden. Okay, slaughtering an animal on Shabbos is forbidden. Okay, it's one of the 39 different types of things that they would do to build and maintain the tabernacle. Okay, okay, but it says, what about hashochet the alma? What about a person who's not cutting the throat of an animal in the prescribed way that the Torah demands, which is kills the animal almost instantly and is the least painful way? We believe it's even more less painful than stunning an animal. Okay, it's the best possible way the most humane way to kill an animal, which is called shchita, ritual slaughtering. What about a person who's not cutting up an animal to eat? He's just a shochet da'alma. He's just, da'alma means in the world. He's just cutting meat, cutting an animal for the sake of it. Okay, or maybe he wants to maybe even to eat the animal on Shabbos, which is also, you can't, not allowed to ritually slaughter an animal on Shabbos. So he's shochet da'alma, a person who just stam means for no positive reason is cutting an animal. Chayav, what is he obligated in? Mishum tzovea. So tzovea is dying. D-Y-E-I-N-G, dying. In other words, one of the 39, if you remember, another one of the 39 malachot, these forbidden works, was dyeing the wool for the curtains. So here, back again. Everybody look inside. Okay, it says hashochet da'alma, a guy that's just cutting into an animal. Chayav, he's transgressing the sin. What sin is he transgressing? The sin of tzovea, of dying. Why? Because when he cuts the animal, okay, it sounds a little bit inhumane, but we're going to get to the point in a few minutes. When he cuts the animal, he's the blood that comes out from the cut is staining all around the skin of the animal, the flesh of the animal. It's all being stained by the blood of the animal. Okay, so he's obligated for dying. Okay, it says v'chad omar. So the Gemara continues. The Gemara and Talmud is the same, is synonymous. The text there continues. V'chad omar mishum netilas neshama. Wait a minute. He's only transgressed the sin of dying? No, also the sin of taking a life. Look in the words are beautiful. The tilat neshama, that when a person cuts somebody, a person or an animal, and the blood comes out, that the soul resides in the blood. Okay, nafsho bedamhu, the soul resides in the blood. When a person cuts an animal or another person, chas v'shalom, God forbid, that he's taking the person's life because he's taking out their blood. Okay, so not only is a guy who this person that for no apparent reason is cutting an animal, not only is he transgressing the prohibition on Shabbos of dying, he's also transgressing the prohibition of taking the soul, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. You're not allowed to take the soul of an animal, or God forbid, of a person, or more so, no, an animal on Shabbos. During the week, you're allowed. Okay, now, what has that got to do with anything? And so the Ba'al Shem Tov continues. He says we're going to understand what we just said by looking at another Talmud line from the Talmud. This is from Sukkah, the Talmud tractate called Sukkah, the 52nd page. And what does it say there? It says Ki hayetzer hara nidun la'ased lavei, that the evil inclination, everybody has a positive inclination. That's the part of us that wants us to do good. And there's an evil inclination, that's the part of us that wants to do negative things, right? And it tries to seduce us, okay, and to convince us to do negative things, okay? So this evil inclination is going to be judged in the world to come, because it made all these people do such terrible things. How, right? What a chutzpah! How ridiculous is it? Okay, that he made everybody sin. Ein tzaddik shelo echad. Not even the greatest tzaddik doesn't sin. How much more so normal people? People sin. Okay, and why? Because the evil inclination confuses us, and so the Talmud says he's going to get his share. Right, in the world to come, asid lavo, in the future to come, he's going to be nidun, he's going to be judged. Okay, the Gemara, this is all in the tractate of Sukkah. It says it's very beautiful there, by the way. No time, but maybe later we'll say it about. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about it later. So it says, so the Gemara asks the question. No, is the first thing. What's the question? They says that the evil inclination is going to get judged in the world to come, and it's going to be punished. They're going to shecht it. They're going to actually shecht it. They're going to, like they shecht an animal, they're going to shecht the evil inclination in front of all the tzaddikim because it gave them so much trouble. Okay, what's the question? No, Rachel just joined us, right? Okay, Arel is here. Okay, what is the question? There's an obvious question. You know what? I'm going to say that they asked the same question about Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He says in the end, the Egyptians were punished. They all drowned in the Red Sea, okay, in the Sea of Reeds. Well, what's the question there? Right? In other words, God put the Jewish people into slavery there. They were supposed to there was a spiritual purpose for the Jewish people to be enslaved, okay, that they had to go through a certain amount of suffering to become the Jewish people. That experience, that collective negative experience was crucial for them to receive the Torah together as one family. Well, how could you punish Pharaoh? The same way, how can you punish the evil inclination? Why? He's just doing his job. It's his job. Well, why punish him? This is my job. Okay. And so what's the answer? Okay, Vikasha said, look inside. Vikasha, holakach nivra. That was the reason why he was created. He was created in order to get people to act inappropriately. And then the analogy, we spoke about it a few months ago in the class, the analogy is of the king wants to test his son. If his son is a morally upright person, and he sends him a prostitute to seduce him. Okay, and so putting aside the in the story, the prince, that's the Jewish people, and the prostitute, that is the evil inclination. Okay, and so the focus, the Zohar speaks about this, right? And it says the focus there is on the prostitute. It's whichever way happens, it's damned. If it doesn't succeed in seducing the prince, then the king's going to think it didn't do its job right. He's going to say you were a later guy. You didn't work. You didn't try. And if he, God forbid, the prostitute does succeed, then the king's going to hate her because she brought his son down. Okay, so it loses either way. Okay, so anyway, that's the question. How can you punish the Yetzer Hara for because al kach nigra the tzarich leimar, and the answer is, look inside the text. She'oisa atzmai liyetzer tov, because he does just like Pharaoh in Egypt. He didn't have to kill all the firstborn. That wasn't part of his job. Not the firstborn. He didn't have to kill thousands of Jewish children and use their blood because he had some kind of leprosy, some kind of a skin disease, and he used the blood of the children to soothe his itching. He didn't have to do that. He went beyond what he was required to do in terms of, and that's why he was punished. So the same thing with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. He says, osa atzmoi liyetzer tov, because he disguises himself as the positive inclination. Now, just everybody, look at that story for a minute, okay? It's just one of the most amazingly beautiful, insightful things of Jewish tradition, particularly of Chassidic tradition. The idea that what happens, that the evil inclination actually dresses up as a pious person. When we say it's called our evil inclination, we call it also our animal soul. Okay, does it mean animal? What kind of animal? It's like a pig, a cow that fresses, that wants to eat all the time. Sometimes it's like that, but more often it's more like a fox. It's very clever, and it dresses up, and it tries to tell us that the thing that it's trying to get us to do, it's a good thing for us to do it. You know what? Instead of studying Jewish law and knowing how I'm supposed to behave as a Jewish person, right? It tells me to read storybooks, right? Instead of going to sleep on time, so I'll have strength to daven and to learn, and I'll get up in time to say the Shema has to be said by a certain time in the morning for men. Instead, it tells me to stay up late at night, and I might be studying, but that studying, it's really just to block me from fulfilling my mitzvahs in the morning, okay? The Yetzer Hara dresses up like a tzaddik. It dresses up like a pious person. It tries to convince us that this negative thing that it's trying to convince me to do, right, is really a mitzvah, okay? And there are many. That's what happened in the story that we told at the beginning of the class. That to justify his not giving back the pouch of money to his friend, he convinced himself that he's going to go to a different town and he's going to invest in. He's going to give him twice as much money back. Okay, that was his evil inclination, dressed up like a pious person, like a tzaddik. Okay, and so that's what it says here. It says that the words say that tzarich loima, that how can you punish the evil inclination? Okay, because he's making himself look like he's your positive inclination. And I just take a minute and think about it, right? Why did everybody here, I know you on some level. I know you from the questions that you ask. I know you from our interactions with some of everybody offline, okay? And I know each person, and anybody who would sit and listen to me for an hour a week has to be a person with a good soul. You're a good person, okay? And so why would a good person sin? Why would a person act in a negative way towards another person or do something that God doesn't like? And in almost all the cases, we find some way to justify ourselves. We find some way to lie to ourselves and say, really, what we're doing is better than the proper thing to do. Okay, and that means that our evil inclination dresses up as our positive inclination into our Yetzer Tov. Okay, now we can. Okay, any questions? I mean, so he's going to give the answer. Ubezeh yuvan, but interrupt me anytime, my friends. Okay, ubezeh yuvan. Now we can understand what the Talmud is speaking about, and it's so beautiful. He says. So now, remember we said shochet alma. What does shochet alma mean? I translated it as the shochet of the world. In other words, even I just want to say, like, even the Jewish community is called. There's an expression. He says the community is called the olam. What's the olam doing? Olam means it's something broadly defined. Okay, ashochet the olam. Okay, so now he says no, don't read it. Just anybody that's cutting the flesh of an animal, read it specifically. Hashochet the alma, the shochet, the slaughterer of the world, the evil inclination that pushes us to do negative things. He is the shochet, the slaughterer of the world. He's slaughtering us. He's killing us. He's taking away our free choice. He's making us despised in the eyes of God. That's what it means, Hashochet Alma. And so the Shochet Alma, this slaughterer, the slaughter of the world, is chayiv. He's why is he chayiv? Because of tzoveah, because he's dying, dyee. He's painting himself. He's disguising himself as what? As the Yetzer Tov. That's why he can be punished. He's not coming to say. He doesn't say to Shaul Leiter, Shaul, today let's try something. Let's try something new. Let's sin. Let's go worship idols. Let's go, eat some food that's not kosher. Try it out. Why not? What do you care? You don't believe in God anyway. No, he doesn't say that. I do believe in God. No, he says one day he says, study a little less. You can take a break. You work so hard. The next day, study a little less because you deserve a break. You work so hard until a person gets to a point where he's not studying at all. Okay, or a person will cut a little. What's the expression? Cut a little. He'll make it a little bit easy for himself. Okay, because for whatever he'll justify it for a reason. He'll say it's a good thing that I'm doing. It's a good thing, and little by little, a person will fall away completely. So that's why the shochet is the evil inclination is called shochet the alma, the slaughter of the world. Why is he obligated? Because he disguises himself as the. 1 second.
As the Yetzer Tov.
As the Yetzer Tov. 1 second. Oh, no. So again, he's back to actually, I gave away the thing. Okay, he says, Shochet Alma Chayiv. He's obligated. He needs to be punished. Why? Because he's messing up everybody's life instead of having a completely clean slate. Instead of being able to come to Hashem and just doing mitzvahs all day, he's putting up obstacles. He's convincing people to do, God forbid, negative things. Okay, so the kasha. So the Talmud asks this question: Holakach nivra, but wasn't he created for that reason? Wasn't he created to test people, that they should show, like the prostitute in the story of the king and the prince, to test people, that they should really show that they have the moral and spiritual fiber that they're supposed to have, right? And so the Gemara answers, we're looking inside Umashani Tzovea, and the answer is where he's being punished, not because he did his job, because he disguised him, he tricked us, he disguised himself as our positive inclination. I'm shouting, but I it's because I want everybody to think about it. Think about a time when a person each, and it happens to everybody, when a person convinced themselves to do something negative, thinking that it's the right thing to do. Okay, I think a few weeks ago I told it's a very very famous story of Nachum of Chernobyl. Okay, and I'm maybe even it was last week, because it's a story that so touches me, right? And what happened was he was given money every few weeks for his wife to buy food, and his assistant, not assistant, his helper, they gave him a bag of money, and the next person that came into his room was a person who asked for exactly that amount of money, 300 rubles. Okay, and he explained that he has 3 daughters and he has to get them married, and the prospective grooms are people that are demanding a very high dowry, and he needs 300 rubles. And so the Rebbe thought, oh, here's a divine providence that I was given 300 rubles, and he gives it straight to this person. So a little bit later, the wife of the Rebbe is complaining, how come to the helper, why I need money to buy food. And so, and the helper said, but I just gave the Rebbe money. Well, and the wife says, but I didn't get anything. So the Rebbe goes into the Rebbe, the helper goes into the Rebbe, and he asks him, Rebbe, what happened to the money? And the Rebbe said, I gave it to that per person that came in. And the Gabbai said, but Rebbe, that's money for the house, but for the food for the house. And the Rebbe said, okay, but it was clear to me, since he asked for exactly the amount of money, that was the divine providence that you gave me that bigger amount of money to give it to him. So then the helper, the Gabbai, asked a very interesting question. He said, Rebbe, I understand what you're saying, but you know that was so much money, you could have given it to 6 people, 50 rubles each, and that would have been enough to make wonderful weddings, or to solve the, like it's like a year's salary, 50 rubles. Okay, you could have helped 6 people with a wondrous amount of money. Why did you give it all to one person? Okay, and what did the Rebbe answer? The Rebbe answered, he said that I actually thought of that myself. But what did I think? I said, when I first thought that I should give, here this person needs 300 rubles, and that's exactly the amount of money that I had, I first thought, wow, that's the divine providence, that God gave me the money to give to him. Then that other thought came, that thought that said that maybe I could give it to 6 people. And I realized, the Rebbe said, that second thought, that was my evil inclination, trying to hold me back from doing the full mitzvah, the full commandment. Okay? That's a mind-blowing thing. This idea that even something, helping 6 people ostensibly, is even better than helping 1 person. Okay? Then it actually sounds like its source is in holiness. But the Rebbe explained that since it came to hold him back on the first thing, it itself was an advice of the evil inclination. This is a game-changing concept, right? That sometimes even something that appears to be something positive, something with its roots in the highest level of holiness, it itself could be from our evil inclination, dressing up as a tzaddik, as a pious person. Okay, and so there are 2 different ways in Chassidic tradition to test the situation. The first way in Chassidic tradition is, like the Rebbe said, the first thing that you think about, that is from our positive inclination. Anything that comes afterwards that's in any way blocking the first action, even if it seems like a mitzvah or even a bigger mitzvah, that itself is from the evil inclination. The second, I hope that was clear. Diti, am I being clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The second way, the second test system. What's the second test system? The second test system is to think about, right? If you really don't know what to do, think about what's the outcome going to be. If the outcome, right, is going to be less serving God, okay, less fulfilling of the commandments. For instance, like I want to stay up. You know what? I love it at night. My kids are all sleeping from 11 till 1 o'clock. Is I just love studying. But you know what? But I know myself. If I stay up till 1 o'clock, I can't get up at 6:30 and to be in synagogue on time and go to the mikveh and do my meditation and my whole order of my thing that I do in the morning. Okay, so is staying up late a mitzvah or a commandment or a sin? Okay, so even though it's a wonderful thing, I'm studying more Torah and it's so easy for me and I'm flying, but because it's going to block me from fulfilling my obligation in the highest way in the morning, it in fact is something negative. It comes from my Yetzer Hara and not from my Yetzer Tov, and that's why I force myself. I'm not always successful, but I force myself to go to sleep on time. So that's what he's saying here.
Rabbi Leiter.
Yes, Shulamis.
Hi, how are you? Just one thing. Lo Inam Lo Ishan Shomer Israel.
Right.
The
Okay.
guardian of Israel never neither slumber or sleep.
Correct. So it's true. Okay, but what do you want to say, Shalom? The point in that God is everywhere. God is all around us. Okay, and even if a person does something negative, right? It's when he realizes that he was off track and he comes back, he's even on a higher level than was before. Even the most righteous person can't stand in the place of about tshuva. Okay, but still a person has to be alert. The whole thing is don't fool ourselves. Don't fool ourselves. Okay, that's what the Ba'al Shem Tov is talking about. So let's look back inside. Okay, so he says, the Gemara asks. He's explaining the Mishnah now. He's explaining the Talmud now from the perspective of the evil inclination. He says now we understand what does it mean shochet the al mechayiv, that the slaughter of the world. He's going to be judged in the world to come. He's going to be shechted in front of the tzaddikim in the world to come. And the Gemara asked the question, Vekasha, how can you punish a person for fulfilling his purpose in the world? The evil inclination's purpose is to what? Is to trick people. And so the Umashani and the Gemara answers, Mishun Soveya. The answer is because he paints himself. He dyes himself. He puts on a disguise. And people think, what is he? He's a tzaddik. He's righteous, right? You know, that eating that extra ice cream pie, you see that piece of this, you had all you needed to eat for 2 days, and there's a piece of pie in the pot in the pie pan. And what do you say? You say, Bal Tashchis. I don't want to waste the food. There are people in China that are starving, or whatever. You convince yourself to say, so you eat it up. You convince yourself that it's a mitzvah. Somebody went to so much trouble, and there's so many sparks in it. And what happens in the end? Yeah, you're out flat because the sugar hits you, and you can't think anymore. Okay, that's an example of a person justifying their actions, and that's what he's talking about. That's what it's called sovea, that the evil inclination disguises himself and tricks us into doing what it wants us to do. That he says, Shahut Savua, he's painted the Demut Yetzer Tov. He looks to us like he's it's our positive inclination. I must eat that cake, right? Because can't let it go to waste. There's a mitzvah, by the way, it's a mitzvah. Bal Tashchis, not to waste things, is one of the 613 commandments. Okay, you're not supposed to destroy things for no reason. You're not supposed to throw away food that could be used up somebody else. But it doesn't mean that a person has to overeat. That's how people fool themselves. Okay. Anyway, and he completes for al yedei the al yedei notil neshama. He says that's what the Talmud says. The Demut Yetzer Tov al yedei that through the tzavua, the dying, the disguising himself, he's also able to take the person's soul away. He's also to slaughter the person, to get them to do a sin, and because of that sin, to put them in disfavor in God's eyes and destroy them spiritually. Uporach, and the Gemara asks, but then which is it? Sovea or taking the soul? Is it because of disguising or because he's killing the person? Right? Umashani, Natilas Neshama. And the Gemara answers, in the end, because he accomplished the evil inclination, accomplished his goal, of taking away the person's life, of shechting the person, of slaughtering the person by disguising himself, so the heavenly court will hold him obligated for transgressing not just the disguising, but also for the taking of the soul. That's the teaching of Little Shem Tov, okay? And I want to end. What time is it? Okay, good. We're going to ask. I'm going to ask. I want to hear questions. I would like to hear what people think about what we studied. Maybe somebody will give me their feelings about it. But I want to first say, I just remembered a very beautiful story. There's a Haggadah of Passover that was put together by Rabbi Herzog, was one of the chief rabbis of Israel. It's actually the father of the head of what? Father of what? He's the head of the president. He's the president of Israel now. That's right. Okay. And so his father wrote a very beautiful Haggadah with some very beautiful anecdotes. He was very friendly with the Belzer Rebbe, the previous Belzer Rebbe, the father of the present Belzer Rebbe. So it's the story there is that the father of the previous Belzer Rebbe and his son went to the mikveh, and the mikveh was cold, a cold mikveh. A mikveh is a pool for ritual immersion. We've spoken about it before. I go to the mikveh. It's a tradition by Chassidic to go to the mikveh every day. Okay, some people go only on the eve of Shabbos. Some people only go on the eve of Yom Kippur. Some people only go on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. There are different customs for mikveh. Women use the mikveh on a monthly basis. It's a preparation for being intimate, for family intimacy. Okay, but generally today mikvehs are warm or hot, even pleasurable to get into. So, but it wasn't always like that in the beginning of the state of Israel. The mikvehs were often just cold water in a pool. There's a special way. A mikveh is a special. It's built in a special way that the water has a special spiritual power to it. I'm not going to discuss it now. Okay, but most of the mikvehs in Israel 60, 70 years ago were cold. So the father takes his son to the mikveh. The boy is 4 or 5 or 6 years old. Okay, and they go into the mikveh. And the boy goes in the mikveh, and it's so cold. He said, what are you doing? And he gets his head finally in, and he jumps out of the water. He says, he's in shock. Okay, and the father says, now I'm going to explain to you the difference between doing a mitzvah and doing an avera. When you do a mitzvah, it's not always easy at the beginning, but after, but somebody's mic is open. I'm just mentioning it. Hello, somebody's mic is open. All right, lo chashuv. Thank you. So the Rebbe said to his son, I'm going to explain now the difference between a mitzvah, a commandment, and a sin. When you do a commandment, sometimes it's often not easy. It's not easy to do it. It requires focus and effort, and it's not, it doesn't necessarily fit in with our day-to-day lifestyle. So when you do a mitzvah, it starts off like the boy going into the cold mikveh. Okay, but afterwards, I'm not only talking about the world to come. In the world to come, you'll get a reward for doing the mitzvah. But even in this world, you know what? I went out of my limitations. I did what God wanted. There's a sense of satisfaction. So you start with difficulty, but it ends with satisfaction. There's a payback, okay? But it's the opposite when a person does a sin. When you do a sin, it starts off with, the pleasures first. It feels so good to eat that extra piece of Boston cream pie. Bal tashchis. I don't want to throw it away. It's so good. And then afterwards, you say, wow, was I stupid? Well, I listened to my evil inclination. Right? And you say, right, how come I did it? The person's upset with themselves. That's the difference between a sin, a commandment, and a sin. A commandment starts off hard, but it ends up well. A sin starts off pleasurable, but it ends up in a negative way. Okay, any questions about Ayin Ches Aleph? Kiti, you always point. My cousin always points out what I did wrong. No, Kiti, tell
No,
me.
you didn't do anything wrong. That story you just told, I heard about that father and son going into the Arizal's mikveh. That's always freezing. And the kid went in and said, "Oi!" And he came out to a nice big fat towel that his father had and wrapped around him. And he said, "Ah." And it's the same bottom line that you said. A mitzvah starts out maybe with a oi, but it always ends with a ah. And an avera starts out always with an ah. Ends up with a oi.
Okay.
Like, oi, why did I do it? What do I get myself?
Okay. So again, I think if we learned anything here, the point that I want to make is that a person has to be sensitive, right, to fooling themselves, right? In other words, why was the evil inclination in the future to come will be punished? Not because he did his job. Okay, God wants us to do our job. It's because he disguised himself as our evil, as our positive inclination. Okay, and that's what we have to watch out for. Okay? That when it talks about the animal soul, it doesn't necessarily mean just a pig or a cow that's fressing that just goes and stuffs its face, you know. No, it's talking about a fox that's very clever. That a person has to be very clever to really understand what he's doing. Just like in the story of the Rebbe and the 300 rubles. Okay. We're going to one question. No, Hillel, you don't have a question.
Rabbi Leiter, I have a question.
Please, Shalamis, go for
I'll
it.
tell you.
I don't have a question
What you
today,
were
Rabbi.
explaining.
Wait, just one
what
second.
you were-
One second,
Okay.
Hillel. No. Okay, Hillel. All right, so Hillel, continue.
No, I just said I don't have a question today, Rabbi. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. But nice to see you, though. I hope that.
I have a question.
Okay, Sonny, hit it.
Hit it. So, in the case of, overindulging in the cake or staying up late, or the wallet taking, which became evident was the wrong call,
Right.
that's one thing. But in the how to distribute the money, the 300, it's not obvious which one was the right thing. So
Right.
how do
Absolutely.
you solve that?
Okay, so I tried to say that there are two different traditions by Chassidim of understanding that. The first tradition is, right, that whatever comes after my first resolution to do something positive, automatically, that's my evil inclination. If it's in any way blocking what I'm going to do. Okay, I want to say it just happened to me this Shabbos. Okay, the minyan starts at 10 o'clock. I learned with one of my son-in-laws from 9 to 10. The learning was very, very beautiful, and it was 5 to 10, and we got into something so beautiful. And I say, you know what? Let's just spend a few more minutes studying, even though we have a commitment, the two of us, to get to the prayer service on time. Okay, was that stopping to study that little bit extra shtickle that's going to make us late for prayer? Was that a positive thing or a negative thing? I from my perspective, it was a negative thing. It came to take me away from davening with the minyan, which is a very, very important thing. This Shabbos was Shabbos Mevorchim. It's especially with Shabbos, the blessings of the coming month. Okay, it even though it seemed like even a bigger mitzvah, I'm going to even learn more beautiful things. I'm going to understand the studies more than I did before. No, but because it was taking me away from a concrete mitzvah that I'm committed to do, it itself ended up being my Yetzer Hara. Okay, and my son-in-law said, no, we're committed to being the minyan, and we put it down. You know what? And we studied it later. Okay, that's the first thing. Whatever the first positive thought you have, whatever comes after, if in any way holds you back from fulfilling the first thing, that's the evil inclination. Okay, full stop.
Okay, but in what you're describing,
Sonny, 1 second. The second method is what I said, and I you know what, I asked for questions, and I still want to finish the next piece here. So I'm going to push ahead in a minute. The second thing was to gauge the outcome. To gauge the outcome, okay. To gauge the outcome, here I made a decision to do something else, something a counter thought came up. If I follow the counter thought, will I be doing more divine service or less divine service? Okay, if we realize that it's gonna result in less divine service, okay, then that's our, even though it's also a mitzvah, that's our evil inclination. Do they make sense, Sonny? It's either one way. We're suggesting two different ways for a person to gauge themselves. Okay.
Rabbi Leiter,
Yes, Shalamis.
I have a question about that very subject. What you addressed before about
Okay.
it. You have to be so aware of your thought processes, and how your thoughts develop in your head, and it's so difficult to build that kind of awareness.
I want to. You know what? I'm not changing the subject, but I have a custom that I learned from the founder of the Kabbalistic community in Israel, in Tzfat. It was called Moshe Cordovero, and he was the one. It was his students actually. It was his students that actually put together the Kabbalat Shabbat service. And the tradition with the Kabbalat Shabbat service is there's 6 different psalms, and then we say Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nekabala. Come, my beloved, to meet the bride. Let's greet the countenance of Shabbos. So what are those 6 psalms? And he explains, the Ramak explains, the 6 psalms go on the 6 days of the week, and each psalm we're actually gathering together all of the sparks of that day of the week. The first psalm on Sunday, the second psalm on Tuesday, the third psalm on second psalm on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On each psalm, we're supposed to go back to the day of the week and to remember some event from that day of the week to bring ourselves back to that day. To
Wow.
One second, Shalom. 1 second. We're supposed to go back, and that when we come back to that day of the week, even just in our mind, we elevate all of the sparks of that day. Okay. Now, I want to all my friends, all of our friends that joined me for this class today. Is it easy to do that? I want to tell you something. When I first learned it, it's got to be 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Very, very difficult. Very difficult. Sometimes, one day moves into another. And I want to tell you, during Corona, it was, since there were so many weeks we just sat in the house day after day, it became very, very difficult. But I'm back now on top of it. And it's something that comes with practice. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. A person, if you think about what's motivating you, okay, if you had a positive thought to do a positive thing, and all of a sudden there's a second thought, and it's a vector, it's taking you away from the first resolve. Even out for sure, if it's to say, oh, I'm too tired, or I'm not holy enough, or all right, if it's that kind of thing, for sure, it's obvious that it's just your evil inclination. But what happens if the thought is to do another mitzvah, something else instead? Then you have to think, right? You have to think, if it's taking away from my service to God, okay, if heaven is going to clap less, not only, right, is it not my positive inclination, it's actually my evil inclination, dressing up like a tzaddik, okay, and trying to twist the finger. Okay, one more question, then we have to move on. What do you want to say? Yes.
I just have a comment, and I hope you agree with this, and I'm not talking from the Sahara. The Ashkenaz who came from Europe, they had a bad thing, they would throw poo-poo, or you would throw salt over the shoulder. That's also the evil inclination. You're taking away that power from God and giving it to the salt. Or the Sephardim who have the symbol in the car or have the symbol anyplace and give precedence to it instead of giving it to Hashem. That's also the evil inclination. You're taking it away from Hashem. Or I think in Hebron, they give you the red ribbon, the red band for good luck. Also the evil inclination, isn't it? You take away from Hashem. Do you agree with that?
I hear what you're saying. I always understood it in a different way, Moshe. This thing about throwing salt over your shoulder or saying poo, 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 right? When I think when a person recognizes that there's a shochet da'alma, there's a slaughter of the world, and we're surrounded by all of these seductions. When a person realizes that, and he actually is conscious of it, right? And he says, in the way of poo, stay away from me, evil inclination. The way of salt, they're all ways to sensitize a person that when he actually comes to be tested, he's going to be sensitive, and he's going to be able to see through the disguise. Can you hear me? What I'm saying? Okay. That, in other words, there's a positive purpose to it. It's not we're not giving anything to them. We're in fact, we're sensitizing ourselves. You know, when you're going to be, I don't know if you're a married person with children, right? You're going to send your children out into the world, and you're going to say to them, you know what? There are certain areas in my life I learned to be careful. I'm going to share it with my children that they should be able to benefit from my experience. That's what that is. We're reminding ourselves there is an evil inclination. There is negative energy in the world, and we as Jewish people can overcome it, right? We just have to know mitzvahs are the dance, the tai chi, the yoga that takes us in and out through all of the ways, and brings us to the final goal of a better world, a positive world, a world of Mashiach. Okay, what time is it? Should I do this last piece? Yes, we're gonna do it class. Okay, because it's the same teaching. Whoops.
The time that it'll take to do a survey, we could do the piece. Okay?
Right. Okay, let's do the piece. Okay. So we're at I and Ches base. I didn't translate this, Hilla. I'm sorry, but next week I'm going to try to do if the translation was helpful, I'll try to do everything. The Zel Shekos of a Yetzer Hara. So it says, what's the Yetzer Hara? What is the evil inclination? It says it's quoting a verse from Psalm. Psalm says the different here. I have it here. Let me say the whole pasuk. The pasuk says divrei. Well, you know, first of all, it starts off. It's really a little bit of a scary psalm. It says Lamenetzeach le'eved Hashem leDavid, for the conductor, servant of God, by David.
Which capital are you doing?
It's the 36th capital, and it's the 4th pasuk. So it says, I'm just reading the translation here. It says, think in my heart that sin says to the wicked one that fear of God should not be before his eyes, right? The evil inclination tries to stop a person from seeing God around him, for sin makes itself appealing to him so that God will discover his iniquity, so that God will hate him. So then the verse says, it continues, the speech of his mouth, the speech of the person's mouth is evil and deceit, right? He fails to reason to improve. In other words, it's about that we trick ourselves, okay? Divrei piv oven, that a person who's been blinded to God in the world, the words of his mouth are oven umirma. Oven is like averas, they're sinful, and mirma, and deceitful. Okay, so this is what the Ba'al Shem Tov says. He's going to explain it in a completely different way. Everybody look inside. It says, this is about the evil inclination of the divrei piv oven, that the words of his mouth are sinful, and this, he doesn't bring it here, but the next word is, and deceitful. What is it talking about? Shehem, what's this word? Aven. What's this word? These words for sinning. Shehem averes, shenikra aven umirma. These are the sins that are called sinful and deceitful. What things are sinful and deceitful? Okay. Well, remember we just talked about the Yetzer Hara, right? That the reason why he's going to get shechted, he's going to be punished in the world to come, was not because he got people to do sins, but because he deceives people. So what does it mean that the words of our mouth, the words of a person's mouth, or the words of his mouth are sinful and deceitful? Perush mirameh et adam, that the evil inclination deceives the person. Lomar shehu mitzvah, exactly what we said before. He gets the person. It's a mitzvah to eat that Boston, that third piece of cream pie, right? It's a mitzvah to eat it. Why don't let go to waste? Don't do bal tashchis, okay? And in the end, the person can't move. Okay, so that's what he's saying. It says he deceives a person to say that the action he wants to do is really a mitzvah. You know, but I just want to say it happens in everybody's life. Somebody offends us, okay? And so we say, why? I'm gonna take revenge. He deserves it. He has to learn his lesson, okay? I think it's a mitzvah that I should tell the guy off or do him, God forbid, some damage. And it's not at all. Maybe they were right in the first place. It's so easy to fool ourselves into acting in a negative way. So that's what he says. It says that what does it mean that divrei piv avinu mirma, that the words of the Yetzer of, we don't read it the person's mouth, read it the words of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara's words that lead us to sin is because of mirma, because he convinces us that the sin that we're about to do is really a mitzvah, it's really a commandment. And because of that, he confuses the person, and the person doesn't think properly. What does it mean that he doesn't think properly? Listen to this. He says, if a person thinks that a negative thing that they did, it's not a sin, if they believe that it's a commandment, a positive thing, well, then why would he ever do tshuva on it? Why would he ever repent? Why would he ever feel bad? The opposite. He'll go to the grave thinking, wow, this was one of the best things that I ever did. And it's just a lie and a fake. Okay? That's what it means, divrei piv avinu mirma, that the words of the evil inclination's mouth are that get us to sin are from mirma, are from deceit. He says, because a person won't ever do tshuva on it. And that's the most tragic thing, right? That a person thinks that they did a positive thing when they really did a negative thing.
That's Chassidic. He stops him from
right. That's right. Because he holds back from the person thinking. You don't read it to the person. He's now you can understand what it says. That when the evil inclination uses mirma, deceit, and the person thinks he's doing a mitzvah instead of doing it a sin and a vera. The chadal, he holds back. If he holds back from thinking properly, that what does thinking properly mean? That a person will regret the negative thing that they did, and they will do tshuva for it. Okay.
Lehetiv, to better himself.
Lehetiv, okay. And that's
and
what
so,
me oise tshuva. He's gonna. This is the Ba'al Shem Tov says it with. It's so poignant. Who's going to do tshuva when he thought al asiyas mitzvah? When he thought that he did a mitzvah. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an incredible.
Okay.
Sometimes we think logic outrules the Torah.
Right. That's right, and that's okay. I want to say that yesterday's Torah portion was about Pinchas, and ostensibly Pinchas did break. It says lo morinken, when Pinchas went and was jealous of God's honor. Moses couldn't tell him to do it. It wasn't a mitzvah because it was only a person that's a kanoi for Shem Hashem, and only person that actually can catch them in the act. It was very, very complicated. Okay, and so yes, there are some times when some level of logic is also a mitzvah. Okay, but it's something that has to person. It's a very, very delicate thing. And that's why it's very important to have good advisors and to be surrounded by people and to have this whole process of thinking twice, right? Okay. By the way, I'm thinking. But by the way, why didn't Moses himself do it? Why didn't
he
Moses?
Forgot?
No, he forgot. But when Pinchas
because he taught Pinchas just the other day about this.
That's right. But when Pinchas remembered, why didn't Moshe do it? Moshe was the king. It was his job, but because Moshe himself was married to a Midianite woman, that Zimri actually
that was the whole complaint against
that's
him.
right. Zimri
the conversation between him and
that's right. Zimri challenged Moses. Why, if you could take a Midianite woman, why can't I? The answer actually is because Tzipporah, Moses' wife, was with him at the giving of the Torah, and everybody at that time became Jewish. With the Cosby, the girl that Zimri took, was not Jewish. Okay, she was a Kutit, a Midianite woman, and forbidden to the Jewish people. Okay, and so there was an answer, but because he actually challenged Moshe was exactly afraid that he might fool himself, that he might go after him. Because he was angry at him.
He was a Nageya B'Dover.
Nageya, but Nageya B'Dover means, it's a very beautiful Jewish idea. Nageya, he had a private agenda. Nogea Bedover. He had a certain connection to the situation, a private agenda that would make his action suspicious, because people could doubt his motivation. Okay, exactly what we're talking about here. So therefore, what did Moshe do? He held back. Okay.
Although all the people, even by Pinchas, who were doubting his motivation and being
Right. That's
angry.
right. That's right. That's right. Even by, and it was only because God said.
Exactly.
God said. I mean, what part of God saying do you not understand? God said that the Pinchas was
Heshev is Chamosi, right?
right. He Kinas Kinasi. He was
Kano is
jealous of
Kanasi.
Kavodi. Kinas Kavodi. He was jealous of my honor, and he took away my anger, and he stopped the plague. Okay, so again, there are some situations where a person has to act in an exemplary way, but that's all the more so that it has to be thought about. Okay,
Rabbi Leiter,
Reb Reuven, welcome.
is there any connection of Bill Cosby being freed from jail during the parsha where it talks about Cosby?
You know what?
If anybody knows the answer to that question, it's the people in Sfat.
Wrong sex.
right. And the answer, and what's the answer? The answer is that I don't have an answer. No. To say
Okay.
that some way God's ways are machshavosai lo machshavosechem. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. Okay. Anyway,
No coincidence. Ever.
no coincidence. But we don't necessarily understand everything. When Mashiach comes, we'll know
Exactly.
every detail. Okay.
Exactly.
Renata, welcome, and Simone, Dara, Karen, Vincent, Sisi, hi, Lisa, Lisetta,
Hello, Kuda.
the iPhones, right, and Sunny, Valeria, and Michael, nice to have you, and Shulamit, Reuven, Giti, and Moshe. Have a wonderful week. You know, I think the week should start with an Rabbi Leiter's famous line: Jewish people are not just supposed to sit there and do something. Don't just sit there, do something. We're supposed to say, don't just do something, sit there.
Exactly.
Take a second and think. We have the privilege, okay, God giving us the privilege of taking an extra minute and thinking of what our agenda is, what our motivation is. Is this thing I'm about to do, is it going to help me do more service of Hashem, to make a more kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name in the world, or less, okay? And if you don't know the answer and you can't figure it out, then pick a person. It doesn't have to be a special person. It doesn't have to be a big rabbi. It could just be sometimes even a friend who will be able to reveal things about ourselves and our thought process that we ourselves can't even see. Right? It's, you know, even a friend. But the main thing is just to use the privilege to think and to act in the best possible way. Okay, take care, everybody. We'll see you next week in Mitzvah. Thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Have
you,
a good-
Rabbi.
A good week, everybody. Bye.